Get ready to blast off into the incredible world of brain-computer interfaces. Neurocareers Doing the Impossible is taking you on a journey to meet the fearless pioneers pushing the boundaries of what's possible. In this special series, we'll be shining a spotlight on the nominees and winners of the International BCI Award, one of the biggest and most prestigious awards in the BCI world. You'll hear from BCI professionals as they share their revolutionary work and get a behind-the-scenes sneak peek at what it takes to be a winner. So, buckle up, grab a snack, and get ready to be amazed as we explore the impossible becoming a reality in the world of BCIs. But before we blast off, I want to give a big thanks to the co-host of this BCI Award edition on our podcast, Dr. Christoph Guger and GTech Medical Engineering. When I was a faculty member at the University of Cincinnati and Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center, my team and I did some pretty amazing stuff for patients needing epilepsy surgery. We would put special sensors, also called grids, directly on their brain to prepare for surgery and create maps of their brain in a much faster and safer way than is usually done. It's called high gamma mapping, and it lets us figure out in just a few minutes the essential parts of the brain that need to be spared during surgery. Can you imagine? You can create a map of language, motor, and even math processing in no time. It was the first time this innovative technology was used at Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center. When I moved to Florida, I established the first functional brain mapping and BCI program at Florida Hospital. I continue to use high gamma mapping to help epilepsy patients avoid losing their ability to speak or move after surgery. But even cooler than that, I created brain-computer interface studies that let patients control things with their brain in real time. Our patients could even spell words with incredible speed by just using their brains. No hands involved. I also discovered that brain-computer interfaces could help patients move their chronically impaired hands or legs years after a stroke when not much else could help them. So, I started working with the faculty from Advent Health University to help these patients restore their ability to use their hands. I received special training for it, and it's still mind-blowing how cool it is. My favorite part of what I do is teaching. At my established Institute of Neuro Approaches, I've integrated all my experience and knowledge into a unique course on brain-computer interfaces. With graduate neurobiology students, we started with theory, and then I gave them the BCI equipment so they could have hands-on experience working with BCIs. It significantly improved the way students learn, and they absolutely love this practical part of learning how to use neurotechnology. And all of this was made possible thanks to GTech's awesome brain-computer interface technology. They have everything from high-tech up to 1024-channel EEG systems to wearables, tools for neurorehabilitation, such as the medical grade system recoveries and educational kits with unicorn hybrid plug for learning how to work with BCI technology. But the most important part is their support and care. I have enjoyed working and collaborating with Dr. Christoph Guger and GTech employees for over 15 years, and I hope for many more successful years ahead. So, if you are interested in GTech's brain computer interfaces and neurotechnologies, check out their website at gtech.at. It's worth it.
Diagnosing amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, at an early stage is a daunting challenge that often seems almost impossible. However, the pressing need for early diagnostic tools has driven remarkable individuals such as Dr. Ahmadreza Keihani to seek innovative solutions. Dr. Keihani's personal story led him on a mission to find early diagnostic possibilities for ALS using neurotechnologies. In this episode of Neurocareers Doing the Impossible podcast, we delve into Dr. Keihani's groundbreaking project of developing a real-time monitoring system for the cortical muscular coupling index, CMC, to serve as an early biomarker for ALS, offering hope for earlier diagnosis and intervention. This project was nominated for the prestigious BCI Award, recognizing its potential to revolutionize ALS diagnostics. Moreover, Dr. Keihani is an amazing educator, and you will truly enjoy his easy to understand explanations of complex concepts in neurotech research. Besides discussing his innovative research, Dr. Keihani also shares his personal career journey, providing valuable career advice for aspiring neurotechnologists. Additionally, he offers useful information about the International BCI Award application process, giving listeners a behind the scene look at what it takes to submit a successful project. Tune in to discover the intersection of personal passion and scientific innovation with Dr. Ahmadreza Keihani and learn how his work is paving the way for new diagnostic possibilities in the fight against ALS. So, hello, Ahmadreza. It's a pleasure to have you on our podcast today. Thank you for joining. And can you please briefly introduce yourself to our listeners and let them know where you are joining us from what part of the world?
Thank you, Milena. Thank you for hosting this event. And thank you, GTech, you and Christo, for all of your efforts. I'm really excited to being here. My name is Ahmed Reza. My last name is Keihani. Originally, I'm from Iran, and now as a postdoctoral associate at the University of Pittsburgh Department of Psychiatry. My background is biomedical engineering, and all of my bachelor, master degree, and PhD are in biomedical engineering, bioelectric, and my postdoc is computational neuroscience.
Oh, so interesting. We have so many interesting topics to explore with you today. Thank you for your introduction. So first, let's just tell our listeners why we're here today. It's obviously because you were nominated, or your project was nominated for BCI Award in 2023. So can you just introduce your project, and then we will go into your past to see how you got to this place, yes? With your project, and then we will dive in more into it. So, what is the name of your project, and maybe just a very brief description of it?
Sure. The project name was inspired by my PhD thesis, and there is a personal inspiring behind of it, and we go through it during the rest of the talk. But to give you a brief introduction about the title of the project and scientific part of it, I will do that now, and then we go in depth and talk about the story behind that. So the topic was developing an intelligence system to in real time monitor the corticomuscular coupling index in healthy people and ALS patients. So what was the goal of the project? As you know, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis is a mysterious disease and progressive disease. And it's a motor neuron disease. It means that upper motor neurons and lower motor neurons dies. Nowadays, there is no cure for this disease, no single test to help you to diagnose early stages of this disease. There is no treatment or halting process for this disease. So what should do? Something needs to be done. We try to develop this system to introduce a meaningful biomarker first. Okay. The problem with classical point of view of neurotechnology and BCI system was that, it was to making computation, do the ITR, increasing ITR. But here we wanted to do a translational research. Okay. How we translate the field in a meaningful way to help the people to do halt the causing effect. Start with the beginning, not going after the disease happens, then try to help them to speak. We go back and start to find the cause first. Do neurotechnology and BCI field can help in that way or not? For example, Neuralink is not doing a super innovative thing nowadays. They are using modern technologies, modern the computation part of it to bring a new ways to go through the BCI. If you look at that, everything is like the classical point of view in BCI, but they are coming back to use the new technologies to develop a meaningful way to look at the problem. I will stop here for the briefing of the project, but we will go through it more when you ask more questions.
Yes, absolutely. I will. So now we know what you submitted for your BCI award, and I would like to dive into the history. First of all, how did you even get into this field? Yes,
Wow.
that is the first question, because our listeners really like listening to those stories. How did your career develop? Why? Why neuroscience? Why neurotechnologies? Did you know that you will be working with something like this when you were still a child? Yes. So what did you want to be before you decided that you will work in the field? So if you can tell us about that, that would be wonderful.
Definitely. I come from a little province and a little village from Iran. And in Iran, when you go to the higher school, you should take part in a highly competitive exam known as concours. Maybe Iranian know this word. It's a highly competitive exam, entrance exam to go to the college. And there are, around 1 million people taking, and you should compete to go to the university. After that, if you pass the exam and get the good scores and ranking, based on the ranking, you should define your field. My higher school background was in mathematics and physics. And when you take part in the entrance exam, you should define several fields. Based on that, then based on the ranking and competition, you go to the college in that field. And based on when I chose the biomedical engineering, honestly, I didn't know about this field. What is this, But the word and the name was a little fancy in our country. Our country is a developing country. And in that time, around 29, yes, around. And most of the people first ranking go to the electrical engineering, computer engineering, and biomedical engineering is fancy in a way because when you are in mathematical and physics, you cannot go to medical school anymore. You should select the engineering or basic science like mathematics, physics, something. So in that way, it was both engineering at the name. We selected by names, and honestly, I didn't know anything about that. So I have gone through the engineering college, University of Isfahan, and in my Bachelor of Science, I had a great experience with many scientists. Some of them came from the US, outside of Iran, and we got a feeling that yes, this is new, but something really is interesting in this field. Then in Bachelor, we have a project, and that was the time my mentor defined a project for me, and we developed a software to simulate the brain neuron, and the axons and Ranvier nerves. And in that case, we developed that software to find that when we do a stimulation of the neurons from inside and outside, what happens for the action potentials. If you do increasing the stimulation, decreasing the stimulation, that was the first part I was interested in the field, honestly. When we developed that software, it was like a virtual lab or physiology lab. When you are in engineering or basic department, you don't have access to the anatomical and physics. And it was like a virtual lab. And we tried to do many inputs and see the outputs. And it was interesting for me. And my supervisor in Bachelor also worked on the field of brain-computer interfacing in that time, but this was not really BCI. Then I go to the better university in Tehran, University of Medical Sciences. This is the rank 1 university in Iran. And again, you do master, again, go to entrance exam. And then, so I have gone through the master 2014. And during my master, I talked with my bachelor mentor. And this was the real time that I go through the BCI systems, not ALS, not anything before that. The BCI systems, what ITR is, how to controlling the mouse. I saw the monkey on the cover of the things about BCI, breaking news, how monkey control. That was the thing. So in my master, we had a great team, and all of the projects was coherent on the BCI field. We looked at the brain as a black box, and we tried to use different kind of stimulations in different modalities and look at the response of the brain, what happens in response to that different stimulus, and how we can define new stimuli to use in BCI systems. And my bachelor mentor was my co-supervisor. And my master and PhD mentor was same, and he was so supportive. And so we were a great team. I had great colleagues. I appreciate them. But we have 3, 4, 5 focus project on BCI. What we have tried to develop in master was this. We started with the simple patterns, periodic ones, then increase the information of the patterns, quasi-periodic. I will go through these ones. It's so interesting. Then nonlinear dynamic and chaotic patterns in both visual and auditory. So then combine both of them, and we wanted to build a multimodal auditory and visual systems. And when we started with simple periodic patterns, we always had some crazy things in the lab. We tried different music, different dancing patterns. We got these ideas, and we were young. It was interesting. When you do different patterns, what happens for the subject? We define new rhythmic patterns, different color patterns, and chaotic ones. And when they listen to the chaotic patterns, they feel something, memories and something. So we started with simple one, then increase the complexity of patterns and different kind of modalities. And that projects lead to several publications and new modalities in the field of BCI, introducing the chaotic, rhythmic patterns and high frequency patterns, visual and auditory. And we go through the high frequency band because when you do the simple patterns, mental load and the fatigue increasing. When you go through the high frequency band like this screen, when you look at this screen now, maybe people will not see that, but it's 60 hertz rate. You don't see the flickering because it's high and you cannot feel it now, but it's flickering. So we use the unperceivable patterns, but on the back of the pattern, there was mathematic formula from simple sinus one, quasi-periodic, and chaotic one based on logistic math. And it was interesting in a way that when you do the mathematics and you feel the real experience, and when you go to the more complex patterns, you see that the level of comfortness goes up. And this was a real entrance to the BCI field. Then I finished my master degree and I have gone through the PhD entrance exam, and fortunately, I got accepted it first time. Again, it's same university, Tehran University of Medical Science. It's again same lab and same mentor, and this was I don't know what is the destiny and in what is the life. We always try to work on BCI system, and we heard about application of it in ALS patients. In my PhD, I had sad moments. I was happy that I was accepted for PhD, but my second year of PhD was so sad. My mother had problem, and we didn't knew that for several years. And most expert physicians are in Tehran, in Iran, because it's capital, and we are from a village. And several physicians from our province detected several other things about my mother, different tests, different drugs, different prescriptions. Several years we had the challenge, and we didn't knew that. What is the problem with my mother? And during my second year, the sound of my mother got blaring, and we didn't knew that. And eventually, after 2 years, 3 years of this blaring, we got several physicians, and we found that my brother called me from home and said that, Ahmadreza, they said that this is ALS. What's the meaning of this ALS? And in villages, they don't know about these terms, the many prescription. And I said that, you you are serious? Uh, uh, really, this was written in the test or no? How they say that? They say that this might be this, but you should go through Tehran and also found about your mother about it. So we brought my mother to Tehran. One of the physicians in Tehran is very well known in the field of ALS. And we have gone through his office and he examined my mother and he said that, yes, this is the ALS. Again, he said that this might be ALS. And in that moment, I found the problem. And I said, there was no test to detect my mother. And we have gone through the end stage. We found that this is ALS. So if we knew that before, at least we can use the current Relizol and Adawaran, the two drug, at least to, reduce, slow the process. And unfortunately, we found lately. That was the moment I thought that, so how we should think about, this is the real problem statement. So how we should deal with this problem. The problem is not developing a brain-computer interface to control the mouse, control the commands. It was my fancy developing the rhythms, auditory, visual, complex computations. It was interesting for me in master. But in that time, I found that maybe basic science, engineering, and pure mathematical point of view, we had systematic. We should do something that, halt the causes of problems. I found that the real challenge is this, not developing fancy I'm interested, I'm methodological, I'm interested again. If we do a computational that solve the problem, that is the real computation that should I do. So I thought that I sent a message to the physician and I talked with my mentor again. Please let him be my co-supervisor from clinic. And my mentor was very friendly, supporting. I said, it's okay. We can work with him. We asked him, can you be, and he was very prestigious person. He did then enough time to be supervisor of PhD student because he is well known and so. And he said, okay, we can set the session to define what you want to do in your PhD. I said that how about if you develop something to see if your patient comes to your office, you don't know. Should rule out other motor neuron disease, then find out this will be ALS or not. If we define a proposal or a method in new ways in biomedical engineering way, because we should define thesis in the engineering and mathematics, because you want to get PhD in biomedical engineering, we should use the neurotechnology, engineering, mathematics so I said that this is a real problem state. If we define a thesis that find a way, I ask him, what is the problem that you cannot define someone is ALS or not? And we found that the problem in clinic now is that no way you can find upper motor neuron information. Can you develop a modality or find a ways, new tests that show the upper motor neuron information? So this was a real question. And nowadays, again, this is a real question nowadays also. Is there a real or new way that you can unveil reveal the information about upper motor neuron disease? Because we don't know the causality. And I'm doing translation on psychiatry again here also in Pittsburgh. I'm interested in causality, not only causality in more general point of view, in computations, in machine learning. What is causal machine learning? What is back and what is the cause? In causality. So I thought that and talked with my supervisor. If we look at the healthy subjects, and the problem is ALS in corticomuscular system problem. Healthy subjects have a brain system, muscle system. The brain and muscle are connected and works well. So in motor neuron disease, corticomuscular system should have an abruption, should have a problem. What is that problem in that corticomuscular of patients that makes it different from healthy controls? Maybe if we find that difference, we can have an insight how this disease start or how we can help or understand something at least. What is the problem? So patient of ALS has a problem in corticomuscular system. How we can reveal this problem compared to healthy controls? And always when we work in neurotechnology, there is a challenge about non-invasive, invasive. Yes, you can develop and find the fancy invasive ways to go through but for a PhD or a country, it's not possible, and it's not possible to go with invasive ways. How you can do it if you are a PhD in a lab that has the EEG, EMG system and something like that, and you have a background of mathematics? How you can do something with this stuff that you have in your hand? And the budgets for PhD and the grants in Iran is not like Europe that here you have grants R01 with $1 million things. In Iran, you have $1,000, for example, maximum for a PhD project. So this is also a challenge. So with what you have in your hand, what you can do. And without that, so what is the upper motor neuron representation? Brain function could be a symbol and icon of upper motor neuron. Yes? And what is the lower motor neuron information? Muscle activation might be a representation of lower motor neuron information. Yes. And in mathematical view, you have system A, brain, you have system B, muscles. And we think about these two systems, A and B. And these are two oscillators. These two oscillators should have coupling, should have interactions. And in healthy subjects, they should interact well, oscillate with each other well, synchronize with each other well to come to do the tasks, contraction tasks, voluntary muscle contraction tasks, and everything. So what happens for these two oscillators in patients? So we have two systems, A and B. They are interacting with each other, and they should do a good work to doing a contraction, isometric contraction, hands, foot, and this stuff. So you can acquire data from the brain separately. You can acquire data from the muscle separately. But we wanted to know the coupling and synchronous information and interaction. So what should we do? You should acquire joint EEG and EMG together. EEG electroencephalogram for audience that are not familiar, EMG electromyogram. So the activation of the muscles, activation of the brain, non-invasively, okay? You have ways to get them invasively. This will be a further steps. But with what we had, no, we wanted to know. So fortunately we had the GTEC system, GUSB amp, and that systems are so reliable. And we were fortunate you can get several biomedical signals together with that system. They are not so specific, for example, to the brain or to the muscle. So we were fortunate, and I was a lecturer of biomedical signal processing, and I knew that because we do electroencephalogram, electrocardiogram, electroocologram, and everything. And I was thinking, if I want to do, for example, with the students during the lab, there was a course. And I thought that, we can do both of them together. So I said, so we have GTEC, we can do both of them. So non-invasively, is it possible or not? So we had GTEC and it was possible. There was other missing point also here. So we have an option to acquire data simultaneously. So, but you should do some specific task to reveal the coupling. If you are in a rest, brain sends signals. But if you engage the corticomuscular system with a specific task that that what is the task, what is the perturbation, the cause. And there was literature and there are great literatures, but most of the studies find this brain corticomuscular coupling as honestly, I do use the coupling word. What is the difference? Because in the literature, they use the CMC, corticomuscular coherence. This is a great reason behind these namings. Coherence means using the frequency information. And there is a reason. With respect to Fourier transform, many clinicians, many people that are in neuroscience field, they are bothered when we develop new things, computational, that are hard or to find a way to define them in clinic for them. So they know the frequency bands, they know the coherency meaning. So that is the main marker that they understand it. For example, what is the coherence in frequency domain, or correlation? These two things are so well known and everyone makes sense. But there is a problem with this approach. Coherency is sensitive to the noise. When you do a little, and why noise is here important, I will describe that. And also there is a delay between the brain when sends the signals to the muscles and a feedback. Muscle sends that to the brain. So there is a noise effect and delay. So coherency cannot capture this. Nowadays, they use coherency is interesting in a simple and meaningful way, show many good results, but there was a problem with this. And we thought that how we can reveal this coupling in a better way to show the causality. Because here, as I said in ALS, it's important to know that it comes from brain to the muscle, the problem, or from muscle to the brain, you know? And so you should have a method also to show this. That was the experience from my master working in nonlinear patterns. Do you remember? We developed nonlinear patterns in the visual and auditory systems. And we used the approach of nonlinear dynamics and chaos systems to describe what is the nonlinear dynamics and chaos to audience. You know, it's hard to explain it, but the chaotic system are systems that have a closed form. Mathematics is simple. For example, logistic regression x n plus 1 equals to r x n and 1 minus x n. It's a simple equations. But the problem is that there is a parameter that when you change it, you go some points that are bifurcations, and you don't know what system should do after that, or you cannot predict the function of that system. So this is a bifurcation points, and people know the butterfly effect. So, and this function is present in our body, in our signals, you know. Yes, we have closed formula, simple formula, but the function will be unpredictable and hard to be predictable, you know. To make more simple, what is bifurcation? Let's assume you are in the ocean, for example. You have hunters and the fishes. Bifurcation means if you do more hunting, fishes will be extinct. If you have low hunter, fishing will be high and the source is not. This is the point that known as a bifurcation, for example. You know, it's the critical point, you know, that point is important. So this knowing the system, you know, based on these behaviors and defining these points are important. Okay. So nonlinear dynamics and chaos point of view can reveal many things, many patterns that you cannot see with the linear functions like coherence. Okay. So, and what is the reason, honestly, to go to the more complex ways that people, you know, makes hard for them to understand? Why you need? We just need to show that we have doing more complex? No, there is a reason. If you look at it with the signal processes point of view, our brain signal and muscle signal are non-stationary. And when you define Fourier or linear things, you always assume that that systems are stationary. So this is the reason, this is the problem sometimes when using linear systems, for example. So we have used the recurrent plots. There is a method in this perspective, nonlinear dynamic and chaos. In that point of view, you can see the coupling of the two systems together. When the activation in muscle happens, it happens in the brain or not. Two oscillation, A and B, two systems oscillate with each other. What are the times that they oscillate with each other? And what is the difference in time? And it's coming from brain to the muscle or from the muscles to the brain. So this was the reason we use this approach. And this helped us to find the difference between the ALS and healthy controls, the delay differences and the coupling index. That's why we name it defining a real-time corticomuscular coupling index. This was the index, one of the indexes, okay, that we use. We also started with linear one, but shifted also to this one. So this is the index. Now, we developed a system using the Neurotech as a part of recording and a system, bimodal system, that provide you the information to do an isometric and dynamic contraction task. Monitor your force of when you do the force, how much force you use your foot or your hand, and what type of contraction you do. So that system helps us alongside the recording simultaneously brain and muscle signals. with the neurofeedback system, the system that monitors the force, and subjects see how much force should insert on the sensor, So we say that force this sensor until this level with the GUI, and subjects see that force. And in the real time, when you see the brain signals and the muscle signal, it goes to our algorithm. Then we use the endpoint optimized Bayesian optimization machine learning approach, and we monitor that coupling based on the nonlinear approach. And you do the force in subjects, you see the coupling increasing or decreasing, the delay between sending function from the brain to the muscles. What is the delay? So, and what the type of the task could show the difference between healthy and patients in more clear way. I would stop here if you have other questions, but I can go forward, but I will stop here for this time.
Yes, thank you so much. You are such a wonderful lecturer. I think any university would be happy to have you to teach courses. That's amazing. And I'm sure that students so much appreciate you when you teach. I'm absolutely certain that that's the case. Thank you so much. So well explained and so clear, and the motivation and the approach you took and how everything is really connected. You showed, yes, your earlier studies that you probably at that time even didn't anticipate how much role it can play in your future work. Yes.
Definitely, yes. And for continuation, after my PhD, again, they had the respect. I appreciate all of them. They invited me to be assistant professor in neuroscience and neuroimage department of Tehran University, but I was young, and I had the opportunity to come to the US to learn more. So here, when again, I learned from that experiences, and again, I was more interested to translating this to the psychiatry. I came here to learn from for more senior scientists, and that was my chance this year to present the new works in the BCI school. And again, we look at the brain here again. When you are mathematical view, you always look at the systems, and then other things can be input for you. You build some foundations, not only a specific foundation. We look at the problem systematically, okay? They teach us many maths in Iran, and we don't feel them in that time. Maybe after, when we go higher and higher and see the real problem, then we found out what was that mathematics that they teach us. Many units in the university, 100 units, mathematics, physics, And nowadays I found that, for example, what is the system identification? Brain is a system, and you do many inputs, many outputs, and the relation between them. And here again, we translate that point of view here again for psychiatry. For example, with TMS, or currently now with with TFOS, transcranial focus ultrasound, to stimulate the deep brain stimulation non-invasively. For TMS, for cortex, what we have done during the whole career, I'm early career, but for these 10 years, for example, we put the brain here, and we stimulate with different kind of modalities, because we see every stimulation as an input signal, no matter what type of the thing, because of the system, and we see the response. So, but each stimulation modality has a different role. For example, TFOS doing the more depths, TMS doing the for cortical one. And in Iran, we have done auditory stimulation, visual stimulation. And I'm thinking how we can put all this together. For example, let's make a simple example how these are related to each other. When you send a periodic visual pattern and record the brain signal, you see the fundamental frequency and the harmonics of that. And this known as a steady visual evoke potential. Okay, it's well known in classic one, first one that people use. I want to show the relation. In in auditory, there is a phenomena again. You send a periodic auditory pattern. When you record the brain signal recording that pattern, you see a steady state auditory evoke potential. In the response of the brain, again, you see the fundamental frequency and the harmonics. Exactly. And the people do perturbation, sensory. They perturbate with connecting sensor to the hand. Okay. And again, when you perturbate with periodic frequency and you record the signal, again you see a steady state sensory regarding to this. So if you look at them, they all look same. So maybe there is type of neuron, type of network. Why they always look, if you change the stimulus, type of stimuli, type of sense, but from the signal point of view, frequency point of view, why you see the same pattern? This is one simple example that I see sometimes in BCI. We go we deviate from the real things because of hype, because of I know we need the hype, we need the thing, we need to be updated. But sometimes the fancy things and sci-fi things are more weighted to the real one. For example, what is the meaningful parts? It's not just only controlling virtual something, sci-fi things. I think we should more focus on the meaning of every modality. What is the markers? Every time there is a new marker or new modality, that makes a true pathway for us to work and research on that area. I think that now it's hard to make a border. What is the definition of brain computer interface today? It's hard. It's hard to say that TMS, TFOS, neurotechnology, signals, brain, AI. So how do you define the classical brain computer interface, brain machine interface, human computer interaction, human computer? It's hard nowadays. Everything is a mix, multidisciplinary, and I think the finding meanings and relation is important. That's what I learned, and I'm thinking now with TMS, TFOS, how we can go through that index again. We had the dynamic and static hand contraction, and now if you do, for example, TMS as an input, what happens to the corticomuscular signal again? What happens to the delay? This time you know the causality, where you add the input and what happens after that. And again, feedback of that. I think this is the point of view perspective that I'm going toward that. And from the computational point of view, we should have, okay, this is the modalities you do the intervention. From monitoring the effects. So we use neuroimagings, we use signals, and these are just, again, modalities. What we do on them, what we do post-processing, post-analysis, that's also important. Sometimes I learn, and I'm learning from seniors, but sometimes I'm working with the students, and sometimes we think about the huge technology, for example, fMRI, because fMRI is better. No. Sometimes, for example, we can reveal with classic EEG better information than that. That's another thing I should be firstly careful when I'm doing research. Sometimes questions can be solved, hard problems can be solved in simpler way. Sometimes question can be solved with the highest complex mathematical way, but we should be careful. I should be firstly careful to make meaning from that complex patterns, complex analysis. When I talk about computations here, for example, with clinicians, we should be more careful to make a meaning, make a visualization, make a feeling, what that means for them. For example, we are doing machine learning here for detecting early stage of some psychiatric things. They want to know what is the back of the machine learning. The problem is that now, what is the cause? What is the cause that makes this prediction? It is back of that. So we are trying to make meaning for the clinician, and I'm trying to learn from them, get their perspective, and make this happen. I hope so.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much. You really illustrated so well how your background in engineering provides you the universal tool of how to approach neuroscience questions, clinical neuroscience questions. Basically, you have already a very well formed framework to work on all these complex issues and investigate all these interactions that can provide real value, and especially for clinical applications. So very nice connection that you illustrated between that background and applicable clinical possible solutions that you can create. So thank you so much, Ahmadreza.
Thank you.
Yes, that's beautiful. Very nice. And I still would like us to get back to what you are doing now. But before that, let's finish talking about the project itself for ALS. Yes, when you were looking at cardiac-muscular coupling index, you already talked about the initiation of the project, the background, the problem, how you approached it. Now, maybe you can summarize the results. So what were your main findings?
Exactly. Okay. That's a great question. Yes. What we found is this. Okay. We found two markers that can unveil the upper motor neuron information. One, the strength of the corticomuscular coupling index, and the suitable type of task that we should use in ALS patients. We use both dynamic and static contraction tasks for foot and hand. And we found that for dynamic tasks, the corticomuscular coupling index could reveal the difference between the healthy subjects and patients. The strength of this marker, decreasing, increase. Okay. The other thing is delay. For the healthy controls, we found that when you are doing tasks and not doing tasks, there is a delay and it's significant. It should be to doing. For patient, again, for nonlinear, for a dynamic task, this delay is not there because maybe he's not doing the task, is not able to doing the task, or muscle are not working, or the coupling is not there. And this is not there. So the delay and the strengths. And we found that the strengths, the cause is more for early stage, is from upper to the lower, from the brain to the lower cortico. The spinal tract is the responsible for this sending these messages. And here we showed it with this coupling, this system, and is evidence nowadays with the DTI, diffusion tensor imaging, that the corticospinal tract is affected. And even TMS also showing that this pathway is affected. And in non-invasive lab with joint EEG and EMG, you see that again is complementary of that results.
And I'm very curious, what was the input of your clinician with whom you worked? How relevant he found those results? Can they be translated? Can they be already used? Or you need to do something additional to implement them in clinical practice?
Exactly. Thank you for asking this question. Yes. Now for Parkinson, for mimics of ALS, we can do that to specify now we found ALS is different from healthy control. So the real question now is that, so what about other motor neuron disease, other corticomuscular disease? If all of them are same as ALS to the healthy control, again, the real challenge comes up for us. So how we can differentiate that with mimics and with other corticomuscular disease? We should specify that. First point was to know that this is helpful, this metric, this system. Now we should specify that What is a specification of only ALS compared to mimics? This is the next step that should be done. And funny a story about the application of this. In my PhD thesis defense, the physician, my supervisor, was there. And at the end, he said that now I can tell what was the result of their tests because they are asking me through the call. You know, this is the real question. They asking physician, what was the result of that test on that system for us now? And honestly, we should do work. Now we have preliminary results, but this is the need. That's what I learned when I want to define new projects. There should be a necessity and need and define real problem statement question. So, but people needs this. People needs to know that what their stage are. And we are thinking now, what happens if you have ALS? What happens to this index in longitudinal way? How can say to us your progress is worse or not? Because the strength of coupling goes up lower. If you do rehabilitation, you can recover with this strength or not. You can change the delay or not. You know, we want to follow this path again.
Absolutely, and I hope that you will, because it's a really promising work. So that you will continue with it. What was the most challenging part of this project from any perspective, computational, methodological, patient-wise? What was the most challenging part, and how did you solve that challenge?
Good question. ALS is a orphan or rare disease. Okay, finding ALS patients is hard. When you find the ALS patients, when you define clinical trials, finding the ALS patients that can do the tasks and your system be user friendly for them to complete the task to be a fair comparison to healthy control is hard. So it's hard to find the ALS patients. It's hard to work with them because they cannot complete the task. They cannot sit for a long time. You cannot attach many sensors to them and say that be patient. They are not controlled. They are not healthy. You cannot do whatever you want to do with. Yes, sometimes you had great ideas, but in practice, how they can be applied, So work with them is hard, but it is what it is, And this is from the clinical point of view. From applicational point of view and methodological. When you do EEG, you know better than me. We say to people, be calm, do not joke, do not laugh, muscle contraction, do not something. Here, when we wanted to do joint EEG and EMG, we wanted them to do the contraction. In a way, we are adding more noise. That's what I said. Corticomuscular coherence is a challenging here. Because in routine EEG, you say that stay calm, close or open eye, and stay calm. And do not any interaction, contraction to make noise on your system. Okay. So here there are some packages, some methods for reducing noise and but always they are not working. You should be careful about your typical task, typical problem to adjust the pre-processing, the analysis, the reason, again, CMC is not working sometimes. Always the methods that are in literature may not work for your problem. So this is another part. Real time. When we talk about the word real time, always in the topics, honestly, I can say it's not real time yet, all the things. You have some delays. And our apex, our main goal should be to decrease that and be real time, And so the real time always is not like when we say real time, you means no delay. But there are some delays, when you are in the next trial, you're showing the before one, later one. It's not because there should be a gap to get data and then analyze, then show that, It's not, for example, this time It's for your last trial, for example, and we should work on that. And when you do, for example, machine learning and computational more, so you have a training part, you should transfer that in real time. And you know that when you use the trained models in real time, it's challenging again. That's also a problem. And when you do the Bayesian optimization, when you talk about optimization, it means on the back of that is more processing, so it's more time. These are all challenging methodological. And when I wanted to write the discussions, the worst case, the main problem is that how you can define your results to be meaningful for a physician. I know that what is, for example, this mathematics of chaos or nonlinear dynamics, what's the mean of biological points? So sometimes it's hard. It's hard for me to convey that message even to my co-supervisor that is aware of every step of projects. It's hard. And sometimes, honestly, it's not only my problem. There is no way to, when you apply that, you should make a meaning sometime. This is my challenge always in the project. You do the fancy computations, and then how I can make it simple, how I can define what is the relation with the real biology to be defined with neuroscience, biology, brain for them to understand your computation. You said optimization, but they wanted something simple, meaningful, user friendly. And sometimes it's not always simple to solve the real question, hard question with simple ones. So there is a trade off. Sometimes it's hard. For me, when I write the discussions, maybe because I'm in the earlier stage, I need more learning, more experience to find that. But this is the real challenge, I think.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yes, very, very well defined challenges. And I think they're applicable to many studies in the field. So thank you for pointing that out. And as you already mentioned quite a few times, this difference between CMC coherence and coupling, and the importance in this particular study to use coupling instead of coherence. Can you maybe briefly just summarize what is the main difference between coherence and coupling for those who are not familiar with the field but definitely want to understand better the difference and the different ways to use it in different situations?
I will get back to define some jargons and definitions, then come back. The real question is this: what is linear system? What is nonlinear system? What is linear system? What is nonlinear system? In linear system, when you do the output with certain frequency, you should see that frequency at outputs. You cannot make new frequencies. In nonlinear system, you don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. Okay. So this is like the correlation, mutual information. So questions are from here. Sometimes you cannot fit mathematical and parametric equation on the problems. Some systems are undefined. They have not closed formula. They are stochastic. They are nonlinear. And you cannot simplify model them with linear equations. There are patterns you cannot. You can take part of the linearity from, yes, if you use linear models, you can get information, linear information. But when systems are nonlinear, they have both linear and nonlinear information. What happens to that part? Okay. And for coherence, coherence is a transformation of the correlation in frequency space in a way. Okay. It means that you have a horizontal axis, frequency, you have a vertical axis as a coherence value. It's a way of coupling, yes, it's a way, but it's based on the frequency. In which frequency you have coherency, you have synchrony, how much? But it's based on the frequency. And what are the main assumption behind the coherence is that you should have defined a stationary window size for your signals. So this assumption for the nonlinear systems is real. Yeah, we simplify that. We assume yes, but happens in real, in event related potential, in events that are transient, like the brain signals. So this is one reason. The other reason for CMC is good, well known. I'm not saying that we should not use it. We should use that to capture the linear parts. But we should be aware that sensitivity to windows, sensitivity to noise, and the delay. You see the frequency, and so what? But what is the delay? Where is that in that question? Some studies comes and add to the coherence with time lag. They are more fancy. This is a starting point. One part of us was a part of the project was linear parts. We started with the well-known metric. But the coupling, CMC could be cortical muscular coupling or classical way cortical muscular coherency. But coupling is a more general word. When you talk about coupling, it's like a connectivity, okay? Coupling. You can define other metrics under that umbrella, under that word. Now you can say that coherence also is a one method under coupling. Nonlinear dynamics metrics for connectivity are one method. Mutual information, one method. Every connectivity measure could be under that umbrella. So it's not just one method and linear method. In coupling, you can define many methods, and we use the nonlinear dynamic perspective based on the joint recurrent plots to show the synchronization and time delay.
A very thorough, very nice explanation. I'm sure many of our listeners will appreciate that. Thank you very much. And my next question is about, again, the findings. Was there anything that you found that maybe was somewhat unexpected, something that you didn't even think of finding when you were starting your research?
Yes, this was a real question that always in my defense sessions and all the things they asked me. This is the one that I challenge a lot also. When you do tasks, when you define tasks, mainly people, literature reviewers think about a specific ROIs, a specific ROIs. For example, when you do the motor task, people think that most of the information should come from the motor area. But I think what I learned from the master, when we combine the auditory and the visual, and here, when you do the dynamic and isometric contractions, what our motor system do, what I see in the results, is not just because of that ROI. The other parts of the brain also engage. And I found some part of it more interesting even than motor. And I cannot rule out the engagement of other parts. That's one of the questions that I said that is challenging. How we can relate this to the, for example, you say motor task. Even you named it motor task. Then you want to talk about, for example, temporal parts of the information. When you find the coupling, because you have the high density EEG channel, sometimes you have some sensory more engaged, frontal. So it means that when we do motor, human is not one dimensional. You are engaging multi things, and when you have a closed loops, ascending, descending, sometimes we think that all things come from starting from the brain. But we also found that sometimes in some tasks, feedbacks from the lower to higher makes the real change. And there was a definition in decades about, we always think about BCI as a decoding. What comes from the brain, we should decode. And now there is another way of looking the problem, encoding of the brain. For example, for blind people, you don't have eye, but you can do a encoding on your visual cortex, for example, to bypass your eye. This is the part that needs more attention, and I found it interesting. That is the thing that I'm saying, that sometimes feedback from the outside going to the brain makes the things, and it's not always comes from the brain. This was that part that we found in some tasks, especially for dynamic tasks or important feedbacks.
Yes, that's a great observation, and also the emphasis on not only decoding but encoding the brain with the new information that can be fed into the brain and used for different purposes. Yes, thank you so much. My next question is, what would be the main innovations, or maybe technological innovations, approaches that you used for this project that maybe haven't been used before?
To be honest, if you look at that, every part of our system was there before. The recording, we use the perspective to how to make it complementary and then use the computation on back of the system. If you look at recovery in GTech now, they don't use the EMG. In a way, we have done that project, but using also EMG. If you look at for example, GTech, so GTech is their system, and biofeedback system, we use our system and it has a patent, but in a way, there is not a huge technological innovation of hardware. No, but all parts are necessary to make innovation in the problem, solve the problem. That's the combination of all parts. But no, for example, fancy or, we used a system that was there. And we used I think the bimodality of that to being able to monitor sensor, different kind of tasks, and making a real computation to, couple all parts together to make the predictions. That's sometimes when we talk about this was also for me from the start, it was confusion. When people talk about new technology, new innovation, they always think that a bulk of the new hardware, huge chips, graphic, or, like science fiction, robotics or something. But I think the innovation and the things happens on the soft part of it, in computation mainly. I think new systems, when we talk about system, we think hardware, but it's not just hardware. I think that the questions, the results, and the computation on the back of the hardware is the system, not just physical part. Yeah, physical part sometimes is key to provide you tools to ask your question, but sometimes not. So here we use the conventional EEG system but to be able also acquire EMGs. That's, I think, is simple and everyone can test this question. Everyone has EEG, just to be able, if that EEG is capable to get the EMG, they can do it. They can create their own neurofeedback contraction even without that. Let's assume they don't want our system to contract. They do simple ones and acquire simple EEG and EMG together, but they should be aware of what type of analysis they want to do with the joint information.
Yes, absolutely. And even the idea of itself, yes, was very innovative. And when we talk about innovation, it's really about the idea, first of all, and how we implement, like you said, with what you had, yes, and you actually implemented and very successfully without really very fancy and expensive equipment and approaches and going inside the brain. I think you maximize everything, the output of what you had available already at the moment. Yes. And of course, we see that and the technology and software and many computational things are
developing right now. Yes, we have this boom in AIs. We all are aware about. We have many neurotech companies. You mentioned today Neurotech. You mentioned Elon Musk. What is from all of that that inspires you in your work? Where are you getting the inspiration for what you are doing?
When we define our thesis in Iran, you should have a literature review for many months. Okay. So, what was inspiring from a starting point, when they define the BCI systems, they talk about modality based. What was inspiring for me? For example, they say that PCSAT P gamma based and SSVP, for example, motor imagery, and they name the BCI system with modalities. Okay. So, what is the new ways? If you find new ways, so we should work on always on that modalities, motor imagery, exogenous or endogenous. For endogenous, you go through it, you put it there. So, what is the new ways? That was my inspiring. They defined it. They dissect the BCI based on modalities. Non-invasive, invasive. Then in non-invasive, they say that EEG based. In invasive, they say that implant based, for example. So what if there are more new modalities? How someone can define new way to get more information or a new way to develop? That was my question and inspiring point when they defined it based on modalities. That's why we define new codes, BCI based on the chaotic codes, rhythmic codes, and now joint ones, joint EEG EMG systems.
Yes, very interesting. And maybe if you find that article, we can put it into our podcast notes for people to see. And maybe they also will get inspiration from that.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And my next question is, what do you think became possible after you completed this project that wasn't possible before?
Oh, tough question. From the start, we had some questions. Did we solve all of them or not? This is the question. The question that was not answered. The causality, time delay, and the strengths. What type of task is important? Yeah, we cannot say that we solved the problem of ALS yet. Definitely, we didn't. But what we got on the board? What is the way to unveil the upper motor neuron information? There is a way. Look at the brain and lower motor together. You have this is one. What is the type of method we should use? We define that. Nonlinear could help to unveil the part of the knowledge. There is a delay, mostly was not covered in a good way. So we bring it, delay is important. And other question was that type of the task. When you do isometric, dynamic, foot, hand. The question is this. For example, the simple question, for example, for me was this. When brain sends the signals to the foot and to the hand, which one goes faster? This is just simple. It's simple. If I'm engineer, a student, this is simple. Because foots are far from the brain, it should be more delayed or for hand. This is a question. You are a neuroscientist. This is a question. So how can we say that? It's only because of the length or far from the brain, or no, there are some compensation that for some tasks, no, it's not different. Even your foot is far from your brain, it does not mean it goes slower. For some tasks, yes, maybe. So these were questions when we do the dynamic, and at least we can say that dynamic, statics, type of the task, has different meanings. Why it's important for reproducibility? If I do not define a clear task. You do your task with little perturbation, with little changes, deviation. You cannot get the same results. That's the question of reproducibility of our results or other results. So these were the points, at least to be questions. Sometimes we do research and no, we have more questions. That's another part and challenge. But at least it's better to know what we don't know. From the start, we didn't even know that we don't know this.
Yeah, that's true. We question and we do the studies and we come up with even more questions, and it's never ending process. Yes.
Yeah.
You are on this path of asking questions and finding even more questions, and you can see that really it never ends. Yes. So what motivates you to go further and to get even more questions? That you know that maybe you will not be able to answer all of them, and still going on this path that basically never ends. What is your motivation behind it?
Yeah, sometimes it's hard. Where is the milestone? Sometimes when this is a real question for this metric, index, and everything in the field. I know that sometimes you spend 3 years, you publish one. Sometimes, or so where we should publish, how we should. These are the real questions for all of us. Yes. For example, I didn't have the invasive way to go through the brain. So yes, maybe some people say that your metric is non-invasive, is not accurate as invasive. So yes, but in that time, what should I do with that, what I had in my hand? Should I stop and do not do anything, or should I do what I can? This was a simple question. I had not, for example, implant huge budget to go through the brain or do the invasive. So a starting point, yes, some people say that why you do not use needle EMG is better. I know it's better. Or is possible on that time for me? No. But if I'm here, yes, maybe now it should. These little things. About the hypes, now I'm dealing here 2 years. I have been involved in several projects here in US. The hype, the challengings, sometimes you do a good work, but you do not publish in a good journal. Sometimes you do a middle work, you do it in a best journal. A reviewer says that it's fantastic. You don't believe that it is fantastic, but the review process says it's fantastic. Sometimes, it's sometimes always in the life, on all process, there is a luck. We should take luck, different perspective, stochastic. Always this is part of our life. I don't know, honestly. Sometimes I think I have done a best work, wrote the best paper, but I get some feedback that is strange. Sometimes I think this is the one that's not, but I get, I don't know. Sometimes I'm confused, honestly. But you are right. We should be aware what we can do, what we cannot do. And that's the reason we should be lucky to work with the people that have seen the next steps more time than us. And so sometimes I listen to them, sometimes I argue with them, but sometimes I should accept, yeah, this is a milestone. I should not go through the ambiguous word always.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing your perspective on this and also the publications. And I think it's many people will find this relatable because they're going through the same process and they will feel they're not alone. Yes, with it. Yes. So thank you for that. And now I want to talk a little bit about the process of the BCI award submission for those who will be submitting. First of all, why did you choose to submit your work for the BCI award competition?
It's interesting. Yeah, there is a point here. When I came to Pittsburgh, I defined the next step of the project. I reached out to the GTech. I had a session with Christoph. And I asked that we have these other steps in our mind. We are looking for a sponsor. In Iran, it's hard to have funding for developing new projects. So we had a session with him, and he said that I'm busy. Great session. Was interested, but at that time it was a huge, work of GTech and everything. And in September, I think before that, I got an email from GTech and Christoph and said that you can try to submit your project to see what reviewer says and so on. So I think it's worth at least trying. Is not complex, but you should be also aware that if your project was not selected, you should not be disappointed, because there are great works. When you look at the works they have published in Nature, they have $1 million projects, they have great teams, and maybe you are not, even you cannot see, you can compete with them when you are in a countries under developing or other labs that are not sophisticated, So I think what they should do is this. If their project had good results, they have publication patents or something. We had the chance that published and the internal patent and something. They should write a concise, clear summary of their project from start to the end to what they have. There are several key evaluation points. Applicability, you covered some of them in this interview. Thank you. But applicability, what is the results? What was the question? What was the innovation? What you added? And you should create a concise, again, video to show your applicability, your real project, But you should also write a 1-page, 2-page with a specific format that GTech defines. And if you do a good job, you have good results, you have all covered at all points, and your publication, your project will say that. Okay. I think you have a chance maybe. And there are many reviewers, as I said, luck, perspective difference, and it depends in that year how many projects. Sometimes your project is one of the best in the world, but in that year, there are projects that are more better. You cannot say that. For example, it's like the Oscar winning. Sometimes some actors could have won several Oscars if that they were not in that era or that time of the other great actors. This is the luck part that I said. You should have a luck also sometimes. but hard work always pays off. Maybe late, but we are on the earliest stage, and this is not, this is not, we are learning, this is a learning process. I honestly think that this is learning. And this, for example, caused for me to be a speaker in BCIS school. I learned again. Now I'm talking with you is a learning again. I think the process is good. And you and Christoph always follow the steps, help them, and we are young and we are learning and we are, it's learning how to talk with seniors like you, Christoph, get their feedbacks, follow some rules. This is a structural rules. We should learn that. We are in the earliest stage, and this is I think this is a great way that GTech doing every year.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what are your future plans? So what are you planning to do? You mentioned that now you are trying to apply your approach into the field of psychiatry.
Yeah.
And so maybe you can just tell our listeners what are you doing? What are your plans for the future?
Sure. This is the interesting now because I'm currently focused on them. I came here September 2020, and I have involved in several projects. One of the projects was what is the real TMS EEG? What is not? There was a debate in the field, and we tried to solve, or at least try to provide a solution for that. This project sparked a debate that maybe TMS EEG and sham responses are same. So what is the ways to show that? And we have talked this in BCI school, and we have found a new way. What is real, what is sham, and what is the good TMS EEG and what is not. This was one of the projects, and we tested in several labs data from Italy, England, and here in Pittsburgh, and we are doing more. One other project was multimodal neuroimaging to find the early stage of psychosis. There are people that known as clinical high risk for psychosis. Is there an objective way when you work and analysis with computational point of view to use multimodal object biological, not clinic, not symptoms and anything? And we had multimodal 7 Tesla fMRI, 7 Tesla spectroscopy, MRI spectroscopy, high density sleep EEG. And we found a way with clustering and analysis altogether. And we found a way what is the people that are high risk, even in the early stage, and how these biologically metrics can define these subgroups and early stage of. This is another project that we have done. Another project, computationally point of view again. There is analysis in the field that known as macro state analysis, and they think you are aware of that. And they think that when you are in the resting state, your brain has several macro states, and they transit in that states. And they think that in healthy subject, this is reproducible always. And we found that for this methodological point of view, there should be a potential bias in group analysis. And we found that they are really stable or not. And we analyzed them before sleep and morning after sleep. And we found that even in the healthy controls, sometimes they compare the microstate in healthy compared to the patients, and they found some microstate A, B, C, D different between the groups, and they think that this is because of the disease. But we found that before sleep and after sleep, there is a change in some macrostates that is related with the processing of the interleaved sleep. And we found that we should be aware when we do this analysis, even in healthy control, you should keep the time of the day and circadian rhythm effect on that. This was another project. And the new project is a TFOS, with TMS, you can stimulate the cortical parts. For these parts, for that multimodal, we found that the thalamus part is the key point in the network in that modality. Now in the TFOS, transcranial focus ultrasound, we want to now go and stimulate the cause of that we found before. And for TFOS, we are doing this in future. And for okay, there is another project, the AI part that's a hype. I said the role of big project like Human Connect or multi-site project and something like that. People when they acquire data, the challenge in AI is generalizability. When I do train a model in Pittsburgh, should it work in Harvard? This is a challenge, and there is no generalizability. We are trying to find why we cannot have a generalized model that works in several labs, several sites, with adjusting all co-founders in neuroimaging data. So we want to say that it is possible or not to develop a model that works in Pittsburgh and can be translated, for example, in Harvard, in other labs and something like that. And there is a problem in the field, and the problem comes from the low sample size, and every lab report the high accuracy results. But when you translate that to other labs, you see chance. And this is a problem. We are working to see if we can do a reproducible or generalizable model or not.
Thank you so much. And what are your future plans in terms of career development? Are you planning to stay in academia, or you are interested going into industry? Because now there are many people who are choosing this route. So what are your plans? If you want to share, it's up to you, of course.
No, it's okay. But when you are immigrants, you have ambiguous future. But after the immigration part, I'm trying to write grants and stay here or apply for faculty positions in US. But I should do something for my immigration part first, because you cannot apply for some grants because you don't have green card here. I even cannot leave the US for 5 years because my visa is single. Um, but I'm happy that I'm in Pittsburgh. Department of Psychiatry is one of the best, honestly. And budgets, NIH grants, big ones. I'm fortunate to working with great minds here, and they are helping me. I'm learning from them, and I'm trying to write grants and apply for faculty positions in the field and focus on brain stimulation and neurotechnology and computational neuroscience.
Yes, and of course, I wish you all possible success with that, because I think you can make a huge contribution.
Thank you.
If you are looking for faculty positions for teaching, for example, also professorship positions, just give people to listen to your podcast, and I'm sure they will just grab you and will not let you go. Because you explain everything so wonderfully, and you would be such a great asset as a faculty and teaching students.
I hope so. Thank you.
So, as we're nearing the end of our podcast, maybe I didn't ask you something. Maybe there is some question that you would like me to ask, but I didn't. So, what would that question be?
I really appreciate you, Christoph, GTech. And, this is also inspiring for young scientists to be heard and their work being, heard and published. And I appreciate the family, the people, my mentors, my colleagues, and thank God for everything happens during the life. And I think sometimes the people, interaction, environment, and everything, you do the hard work, but it's not always that. And people work, kind people, and everything happens for a reason. And I appreciate all the people, kind people, and all the experiences that they provided me. And God bless all. And I hope and best wishes for all of you and all of the people that wants to do the hard work. I think if we do hard work, there is some power that sees that, we should do that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ahmadreza, Dr. Keihani. So all possible success to you. And I hope still to hear you in our future podcasts. You have so much going on that I think we have already quite a few topics that we can discuss with you in the future. So I'm looking forward to that if you are interested at some point. So you already have an invitation from me. So thank you.
And thank you. It's my pleasure. And it was a fortune to talk with you. Thank you very much.
Are you a fearless pioneer in the world of brain-computer interfaces? Do you have an amazing project that's pushing the boundaries of what's possible? Then we want to hear from you. The International BCI Award is one of the biggest and most prestigious awards in the BCI world, and the deadline for submission is September 1st. But don't worry, you don't need a top-notch budget or equipment to be a nominee or a winner. All it takes is a great idea and the determination to make the impossible possible. So, submit your project now at bci-award.com or find the link in our podcast notes and join us on this incredible journey to explore the world of BCIs. And make sure to listen to our upcoming BCI Award NeuroCareers podcast series for tips and tricks on creating a successful submission. Who knows? You might be the next nominee or winner of the International BCI Award and proudly showcase your nomination on your resume to impress potential employers and establish a successful career in neurotechnologies. But don't stop there. If you are looking for more guidance on succeeding in neuro careers, book a free consultation with me, your podcast host, Dr. K, at the Institute of Neuro Approaches. So, what are you waiting for? Let's make the impossible possible together.